Heads up, Agent. Before we breach the perimeter on this file, do us a solid, hit that subscribe button. It lets us know you're part of the team, and drop a comment below. Let us know what city you're watching from. Intel is a two-way street. Now let's go dark. The target had a name, but in the sterile quiet of the Tel Aviv high-rise, they simply called him the Architect. In Lisbon, he was Hamid Al-Ghani, a quiet, unassuming importer of ceramics. He was a man of precise habits, and he believed this precision was his armor. He was wrong. His precision was a vulnerability. It was a pattern, and patterns are grooves that intelligence agencies love to exploit. Every morning, Hamid Al-Ghani would leave his secure apartment in the high-rent district of Lapa and take a private car, never a taxi, too many variables, to the edge of the Al-Fama district. He believed the old Moorish quarter's winding, narrow streets were a natural defense against surveillance. The alleys were too tight for a follow car, the acoustics too sharp for a whispered conversation to go unheard. He would walk. He would have a coffee. He would read the international papers, but he was never alone. For 3 weeks, Shira, a Mossad Katsa field officer working under the guise of a visiting art student, had walked those same streets. She sketched the fountain in the Largo where he drank his bika, the strong, short coffee he favored. She sat 2 tables away, her charcoal pencil dancing over the page, but her ears were tuned to the digital chatter in her hidden earpiece. Her team, the Trigun surveillance unit, was embedded. They were the German tourists arguing over a map, the local woman hanging laundry from a balcony, the delivery driver making a drop. They owned the Al-Fama. Shira noted the details. Ghani always paid in cash. He never looked at his phone while in the plaza. He had a slight, nervous habit of tapping his right index finger on the ceramic cup. He was the man responsible for the new guidance systems that made cheap rockets frighteningly accurate. He was the reason a small kibbutz in the south had buried 3 children last spring. Shira, who had grown up on that same kibbutz, sketched the lines of his face with a cold, professional fury. He looked comfortable. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who thought he was safe. This, the Mossad planners knew, was the perfect psychological state for a target. The routine was the trap. Back in Israel, in the sterile, windowless heart of Mossad's Caesarea division, the meeting was brief. The file, Ceramic PT, was open. The debate was over. Hamid Al-Ghani was not a political figure. He was not a spiritual leader. He was, in the cold calculus of asymmetrical warfare, a weapon system. And you do not negotiate with a weapon system, you dismantle it. Avner, the operations commander, stood before the director. Avner was a man who lived in the gray shadows of the world. He was pale, unremarkable, and could blend into any background. His voice was flat. "The surveillance is solid," he said, gesturing to the 24-hour feed from Lisbon. Ghani is comfortable, too comfortable. He believes his cover as a businessman is clean. The director, a man who carried the weight of the nation's existential dread on his shoulders, pointed to the screen. "The political echelon wants this solved. They don't care how. But they want the rockets to stop. Ghani is the rockets." "Extraction?" Avner shook his head. "Negative. Too complex. He's not a soldier. He's a true believer. He won't be turned. And his knowledge is too dangerous to risk a failed exfiltration. It has to be a removal." There it was. The word. It hung in the air-conditioned silence. Not an assassination. A removal. A surgical procedure. The mission wasn't just to stop Ghani, it was to send a message. But the primary objective was simpler, to make the math stop. To remove the brain that was solving the complex equations of trajectory and propulsion. "He's in a friendly EU capital," the director noted, playing the required devil's advocate. The diplomatic blowback. "Will be non-existent," Avner interrupted, "because he will not be found. And the Portuguese authorities will not know what they are looking for." He tapped a different file. This one contained schematics, not of a weapon, but of a plan. "We've identified a 2-minute window in his daily routine, at the Santa Justa lift. He likes the view." The director looked at the plan. It was audacious. It was public. It was, in its own way, terrifyingly simple. "Broad daylight? The best place to hide is where everyone is looking," Avner said. "He won't be disappeared in a dark alley. He will be misplaced in a crowd. The team is in place. The tourists have arrived. We just need the light. The director nodded once. You have the green light. Make the problem go away. The operation was codenamed Broken Glass. The concept was simple. Create a box around the target, control the environment, and execute the plan within that controlled space. The Santa Justa lift was the perfect theater. It was a 19th century iron elevator that connected the lower streets of Baixa with the higher Largo do Carmo. It was beautiful, historic, and, most importantly, a bottleneck. Tourists and locals queued for hours. The noise of the street, the grinding of the machinery, the chatter of a dozen languages. It was a symphony of ambient cover. Avner arrived in Lisbon on a forged French passport. He was now Jean-Luc, a mid-level executive scouting locations. He met Shira, not at a safe house, but in the noisy, sprawling timeout market. Over plates of grilled octopus, they spoke in coded Hebrew, disguised as an argument between lovers. The box isn't clean, Shira reported, her frustration palpable. The west side of the plaza is obscured by a delivery truck that parks there from 10 Traua to 10:30. That's his window, and the Polícia de Segurança Pública passes the square at 10:15. Every day, it's too tight. The truck is our friend, Avner said, not looking up from his food. It blocks the security camera from the bank on the corner. That's our dark spot. The police patrol is also a friend. They are predictable. We will move after they pass. The rest of the Kidon Spear team was already there. Yael and Eitan were the primary action team. They posed as a young, attractive American couple, perpetually taking selfies. They were loud, obnoxious, and utterly invisible as threats. They had walked Gani's route a dozen times. They knew where the pavement was uneven, where the sun would be in his eyes at 10:19 a.m. Lev, the logistics man, was the most critical. He had rented 2 apartments overlooking the square and a third along the escape route. He had cloned a white delivery van, identical to the ones used by a local bakery, right down to the magnetic signs. He had also procured, through a complex chain of cutouts, 2 EMT uniforms and a medical kit. The disappearance would not look like an abduction. It would look like a medical emergency. In a crowd, people don't look for assassins. They look for saviors. Avner checked his watch. 24 hours. Everyone walks their routes. No electronic comms. We meet at the final checkpoint tonight. After that, we are ghosts until it's done. As the Mossad team finalized their box, Hamid Al-Ghani was on a secure call, the kind that bounced its signal through 3 different continents before landing in a bunker in Gaza. On the line were Ismail, the political chief in Doha, and Fawzi, the military commander in the tunnels. The contrast was stark. Ismail sat in a high-end office, a glass of mint tea on his polished desk. Fawzi was surrounded by concrete and maps, the sound of a failing generator humming in the background. The money transfer was successful, Hamid? Ismail asked, his voice smooth and political. It was, Ghani replied, his own voice tight. He was in his Lisbon apartment, the curtains drawn, but the components are getting harder to source. The pressure is increasing. My local contacts are nervous. Let them be nervous. Fawzi's voice crackled over the line, raw and impatient. We are not paying you to be comfortable in Lisbon. We are paying you for results. The last batch was inaccurate. The new guidance system, is it working? It works, Ghani said, a note of pride in his voice. He was an engineer, an artist. The violence was secondary to the purity of the math. It needs one final component, a specific gyroscope I can only get from a supplier in Germany. It will take another week. We don't have a week, Fawzi barked. The window is closing. You need to move faster. Patience, Fawzi, Ismail interjected. The architect needs his tools. Hamid, your security. You are still following the protocols? No changes? I am a ghost, Ghani said, almost insulted. I walk the same routes, but I vary the times. I use the old city. I am surrounded by tourists. It is the safest place in the world for me. No one would dare try anything in the middle of the Alfama. Fawzi grunted. Pride. That is what gets men like you caught. You are not a ghost. You are a fat target sitting in a European cafe. Remember that. Get the component, and do not call this line again until you have it. The line went dead. Ghani sat in the darkness of his apartment. He was annoyed. Fawzi understood nothing of the elegance of his work. He would go for his walk tomorrow. He would take the lift. He enjoyed the mechanics of it, the old ironwork. It reminded him that complex problems could have simple, elegant solutions. The morning of the operation, the air in Lisbon was crisp and clear. The sky was a brilliant, unforgiving blue. Avner was in position, sitting in a cafe across from the Sana Justa lift, a copy of the Financial Times hiding his face. Shira was 50 yards away sketching. Yael and Eitan were in the queue for the lift, bickering loudly about where to have lunch. Lev was in the cloned bakery van, parked 2 streets over, listening to the police scanner. The box was set. At 10:09 a.m., Ghani appeared. He was on schedule. He bought a newspaper. He started walking toward the square. And then he stopped. In the cafe, Avner's heart didn't beat faster, but his focus narrowed to a single point. Ghani was looking at his phone. He never looked at his phone on the street. "Target is static," Shira's voice said in Avner's ear, calm as a lake. "He's reading a message. He's not moving to the plaza." Ghani turned. He turned away from the lift. He started walking down the Rua do Carmo toward the busier shopping district. "Abort?" Yael whispered into her mic, her hand still holding Eitan's. "Stand by," Avner commanded. The plan, 3 weeks in the making, the 2-minute window, the perfectly placed assets. It was dissolving. This is where operations fail. Not in the execution, but in the deviation. Ghani walked into a small, independent bookstore. "Shira, do you have eyes?" Avner asked. "Negative. He's inside. No clear view." Avner made the calculation. Was he compromised? Was this a counter-surveillance move, or was it random? He looked at the street. It was chaotic. Trams, tourists, shoppers. The clean box of the plaza was gone. This was a messy, uncontrolled environment. "Yael, Eitan, you are now primary. Move to the bookstore. Do not engage. Just browse." "Shira, hold your position." "Lev, start moving the van toward the Rua Garret. Slowly." Avner folded his newspaper and stood up. The plan was dead. Long live the plan. This was no longer a surgical removal. It was becoming an improvisation. And improvisation was paid for in blood. Yael and Eitan entered the shop. It was tiny, packed with old books. Ghani was in the back in the English language section, speaking quietly to the elderly shop owner. He wasn't browsing. He was waiting. "He's waiting for someone," Yael murmured, pretending to study a book of Portuguese poetry. Then the shop bell rang. A man walked in, not a tourist. He was hard-looking, with the ill-fitting suit of a low-level functionary. Shira's voice, now from a new position across the street. "That's Nasser, his local handler. This is not on the schedule." Ghani and Nasser started to argue, their voices low but sharp. Avner watched from across the street. Ghani looked agitated. He gestured. Nasser shook his head. Then Ghani handed Nasser a small, thick envelope. Nasser slipped it into his jacket. The meeting was over. Ghani left the store, his face dark with anger. He was no longer the calm, precise man. He was agitated, walking quickly, not paying attention. He was heading back toward the main street, toward the tram stop. "He's vulnerable," Avner said. "He's emotional. He's not thinking." "Yael, Eitan, the tram stop. Now." "We are adapting." The tram stop on Rua da Conceição was a different kind of challenge. It wasn't a contained plaza, it was an artery. The famous yellow tram 28, a tourist favorite, screeched to a halt every few minutes, disgorging one crowd and inhaling another. The noise was immense. The chaos was perfect. Ghani stood at the stop, his back to the street, fuming. He was replaying the argument with Nasser. He was thinking about the gyroscopes, about Fozzie's impatience, about the disrespect. He was a million miles away. "Yael, Eitan, you are on," Avner said. Yael and Eitan moved in seamlessly. They were no longer the loud Americans. They were just two people in a hurry pushing through the crowd. Lev had parked the cloned ambulance van in a no-parking zone 30 yards away, flashers on as if on a real call. The tram 28 screeched around the corner. This was the moment. The bell clanged, a deafening rhythmic clang, clang, clang. Eitan tripped over a cobblestone, stumbling hard into Ghani from the left, pushing him off balance. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Aitan yelled in English. Ghani grunted, angered by the impact, turning to his left to shove the clumsy tourist away. As he turned, he exposed his right side. Yael, moving with the flow of the crowd, brushed against him from the right. She was a ghost. Her hand was small, and in it was a modified injector, the kind used by diabetics. It contained a hyper-potent cocktail of fentanyl and a potassium-based paralytic. The needle was 5 millimeters long. Ghani wouldn't even feel it. He didn't. He felt the bump from Aitan. He felt the brush from Yael. He felt a sudden, profound dizziness. He tried to speak. His tongue was heavy, a piece of lead in his broad daylight. He clutched his chest. His eyes widened, not in terror, but in pure, chemical confusion. The math. The math was wrong. His brain was firing signals, but his body was not responding. He slumped. "He's having a heart attack!" Yael screamed, her voice cutting through the crowd. "Does anyone know CPR?" The crowd, which a second before had been a collection of individuals, became a single, panicked organism, surging away to create a circle. "We're paramedics," a voice shouted. It was Aitan, his American accent gone, replaced with the authoritative tone of a professional. He and Lev, who had materialized from the van with a gurney, were now in full EMT uniform. The crowd parted for them. "Clear the way! Give him air!" Lev commanded, his Portuguese perfect. They were on Ghani in seconds. He was not gone, not yet. His eyes were open, staring at the blue Lisbon sky. He was alive, conscious, but completely paralyzed. He could see Yael and Aitan kneeling over him, checking his pulse, their faces a mask of professional concern. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He was disappearing. "We need to move him," Aitan said. "Get him to the ambulance." They loaded him onto the gurney, strapped him in. The entire event, from Aitan's trip to Ghani being loaded into the van, took 1 minute and 48 seconds. The van doors slammed shut. Lev hit the siren, a short, sharp wail to clear the tram, and pulled into traffic. Shira, watching from the corner, sketched the empty space on the pavement where a man had just been. "Package is secure," she said into her mic. "Team is exfil." In the back of the van, the procedure was completed. The architect's mind, the one full of rocket equations, was permanently offline. By the time the real police arrived, all they found was a confused crowd of tourists and a tram driver angry about the delay. Nasser al-Din, Ghani's local handler, counted the stack of euros in the dim light of his car, parked 2 blocks away. He hated Ghani, the arrogance of the man, the academic superiority. But the money was good. He started the engine and drove toward the Alfama, to the cafe Ghani was supposed to be at. He was 10 minutes late for their follow-up meeting, the one to confirm the funds. He arrived at the plaza. Ghani wasn't there. Nasser sat down, ordered a coffee. He waited. 10 minutes passed. He checked his watch. Ghani was pathologically punctual. Nasser felt a prickle of annoyance, not fear. Not yet. He called Ghani's burner phone. It rang and rang and rang. Then, voicemail. Nasser's annoyance turned cold. He hung up, waited 30 seconds, and called again. Straight to voicemail. The phone was off. Or it was destroyed. He stood up, leaving his coffee untouched. He walked quickly, back toward the Rua do Carmo. He knew Ghani's secondary route. He went to the bookstore. The old woman at the counter just shrugged. He walked to the tram stop. By now it was 30 minutes after the operation. The police had come and gone. The crowd was back to normal. There was nothing to see. He called his contact in Gaza, a secure, scrambled line. Fawzi's aide picked up. "What? I can't find him," Nasser said, his voice a whisper. He was standing on the street corner, a ghost in his own city. "What do you mean you can't find him?" the aide snapped. "You just met him." "I did." He was angry. He left. He was going to the cafe. "He's not at the cafe. His phone is off. He's gone." Silence on the line. Nasser could hear the distant generator in Gaza. He could hear his own heart beating. "Find him," the aide said, his voice lethally quiet. "Or do not call this number again." The line went dead. Nasser looked at the river of tourists, at the yellow trams, at the bright sunny streets of Lisbon. He had never felt so cold. He called Ghani's phone again and again. Voicemail, voicemail. The architect had vanished. The first tremor of the earthquake had just hit the Hamas command. The sun was barely touching the concrete maze of the Gaza bunker when Fawzi took the call. It wasn't from Nasser. It was from the Portuguese Polícia, a local contact on the payroll, a man who usually provided information on shipping manifests and port security. "Commander," the man's voice was tinny. "There was an incident today at the Rua da Conceição. A man collapsed, medical distress." Fawzi was impatient. "Why am I being told about this? A tourist has a heart attack. We are not sure. The initial reports from witnesses, they are confusing. A man collapsed. 2 paramedics arrived immediately. Like they were waiting. They took him. The problem, Commander, is that he didn't go to any hospital in the city. We checked. The ambulance service has no record of the call. The van, it did not match any in their fleet." Fawzi's blood turned to ice. He hung up without saying goodbye. He looked at the map on his wall, the one showing launch trajectories. His aide entered. "Sir, Nasser is on the line. He's frantic. He says he can't find the architect." Fawzi picked up the secure phone. "Nasser. Sir, I swear I went to the plaza. I've checked the hospitals. He's gone," Fawzi whispered. He wasn't speaking to Nasser. He was speaking to himself. He was seeing the shape of the operation. It was clean. It was professional. It was them. "What do you mean, gone?" Nasser pleaded. "Gone where? Taken? Or... Shut up," Fawzi roared. The word gone was the new reality. It was a vacuum. It was a black hole. It wasn't a death he could mourn or a capture he could negotiate. It was an erasure. He slammed the phone down. He knew who he had to call, and he knew how much he would dread the conversation. He dialed the secure number for Doha. Ismail picked up on the first ring. "He's gone," Fawzi said, the words tasting like ash. "Explain," Ismail replied, his voice a flat, dangerous monotone. "Lisbon, in broad daylight. The Zionists, they took him. Right off the street. It was them. It had to be." There was a long silence on the line. Fawzi could hear the faint sound of traffic in Qatar. He could hear Ismail breathing, slow and steady. "How?" Ismail finally said. "Do you lose our most valuable asset in the middle of a European capital, in the middle of the day?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. The secure video conference was a study in contrasts. Ismail, in his Doha office, was framed by polished wood and leather-bound books. He wore a crisp white dish dasha. He looked like a banker. Fawzi, in his Gaza bunker, was a grainy, low-resolution image of a man in a military fatigue jacket, illuminated by a single harsh fluorescent light. They were the 2 heads of the snake, and they were, in this moment, looking in opposite directions. "This is a humiliation," Ismail began, his voice dangerously soft. "Not a setback, a humiliation. They did not do this in the dark. They did not use a bomb. They walked up to him in front of hundreds of people and took him. Do you understand the message this sends? It says we cannot protect our own. It says our safe houses are paper. It says we are children." Fawzi bristled. "This is not a political problem, Ismail. This is a security breach. Your man, Nasser, he was the last one to see him." "My man?" Ismail scoffed. "He was your recommendation. The man you vouched for. The man who was handling the money. Your money, Fawzi. He was meeting him to transfer funds," Fawzi shouted, his grainy image pixelating with the force of his voice. "Funds that you were late in releasing. Do not throw your operational failures at my feet." Ismail shot back, his composure finally breaking. "You and your engineer were too comfortable. You believe the enemy plays by your rules. They don't have rules. They have objectives, and they just completed one." This was the first thing they said. They didn't ask, "What's next?" They didn't ask, "How do we respond?" They asked, "Whose fault is it?" The chamber of command became a chamber of echoes. Accusations bounced off the walls of concrete and polished wood. "It was the Portuguese," Fawzi insisted. "They must have been complicit. They cleared the street." They were not. Ismail said, rubbing his temples. I have already spoken to our contacts there. The government is as baffled as we are. They are angry. They see it as a violation of their sovereignty. The Zionists have made us look weak, and the Portuguese look incompetent. It's a double victory for them. So what now? Fawzi demanded. We have lost the new guidance system. We have lost Hamid. Hamid is gone. He is a ghost, Ismail said. What I want to know is, who held the door open for the Israelis? Who gave them his routine? Who knew about the bookstore? The video call was silent. The two most powerful men in the organization stared at each other. The real operation was just beginning. The virus of suspicion had been injected. Fawzi, in Gaza, became a man possessed. He didn't sleep. He drank bitter, sludgy coffee and stared at the transcripts. He was a military commander, and his default response to a breach was to find the traitor. The enemy wasn't the Mossad. They were a predator, and predators hunt. The enemy was the one who had unlocked the cage. His first order was brutal. Find Nasser. I don't care how. Get him here. Nasser was not a fool. He knew the call from Fawzi's aide was a death sentence. After his unanswered calls to Ghani, he had driven not to his apartment, but to the port. He was on a fishing trawler heading for Morocco before Fawzi's men had even kicked in his door. He left behind his family, his life, and a laptop full of incriminating data. He was gone. Fawzi's paranoia deepened. Nasser had run. It was an admission of guilt. He was the one, Fawzi declared to his inner circle. Nasser, the money grubber. The Zionists must have paid him. He set up the meeting at the bookstore. He handed Ghani over. But some of his deputies were not so sure. Sir, one young commander dared to speak. The bookstore was a change in pattern. Hamid was the one who called for the meeting. He was angry about the funds. Nasser was just the delivery man. Fawzi's eyes narrowed. So you're saying it wasn't Nasser? I am saying, the young man said, treading carefully, that the Zionists knew the new pattern. They adapted. How did they know? How did they react so fast? The room went cold. The implications were staggering. If it wasn't Nasser, it meant the Mossad had surveillance so deep, so total, that they could adapt to a last-minute change in real time. Or it was someone else. The mole hunt turned inward, like a serpent eating its own tail. Who else knew about the funds? Fawzi demanded. Only you, and Ismail, and Hamid himself, the aide whispered. Fawzi's world tilted. He reviewed the final frantic call. Ghani had been angry. He had complained. The phone, Fawzi whispered. Ghani's phone. Was it clean? The technical team was summoned. They reviewed their own protocols. The phone was a custom-built, triple-encrypted device. It was unbeatable. Unless, the tech chief said, trembling, the encryption itself was compromised from the start, from the supplier. And who, Fawzi asked, sourced the new phones? The tech chief looked at the floor. The order. It came from Doha, from Ismail's office. The earthquake had struck. Now the tsunami was pulling the entire organization back out to sea. Fawzi, the military man, now suspected Ismail, the political man. The disappearance of one engineer in Lisbon had just severed the head of the organization. In a quiet safe house in the hills outside Lisbon, Avner and his team were enjoying their first real meal in days. Steak, potatoes, a good Douro red. The debrief was informal, but absolute. Shira was plugged into a SIGINT, Signals Intelligence console. She was no longer an art student. She was a hunter, listening to the panicked chatter of the prey. Fawzi has put a mark on Nasser, she reported, a small, grim smile on her face. Nasser is running. Fawzi's men are tearing his apartment apart. Good, Avner said, cutting his steak. Let them clean up their own mess. It's better than that, Shira said, her eyes wide. She was listening to the feed from the Gaza bunker. Fawzi, he thinks Ismail's office is compromised. He's accusing Doha of using tainted communication equipment. He just cut the primary secure line to Qatar. The team stopped eating. This was it. This was the real victory. The removal of Ghani was a tactical success. It stopped the rocket program for, perhaps, 6 months. A year. They would find another engineer. But this was a strategic victory. The Mossad had not just removed a man, they had planted an idea. They had used the organization's own secrecy, its own paranoia, its own fractured leadership against it. Fawzi, Gaza, and Ismail, Doha, were already suspicious of each other. The Lisbon operation was designed as the perfect wedge. By making it public, audacious, and blaming no one, the Mossad had forced the Hamas command to find an internal scapegoat. They are now deaf and blind to each other, Avner said, raising his glass. Fawzi will not trust any political order from Ismail. Ismail will cut Fawzi's funding, believing his military wing is compromised or incompetent. What about Ghani? Yael asked. She was the one who had administered the medicine. Avner looked at her. Ghani's body, along with the van, is currently at the bottom of the Atlantic, 50 miles off the coast. As far as the world is concerned, he is not gone. He is not deceased. He is missing. A ghost. And a ghost can be anywhere. A ghost can be in any phone call. A ghost can be in any bank transfer. The true purpose of the mission was complete. They hadn't just made a man disappear. They had made trust disappear. In the end, what did the Hamas command say? In the first hour, they said, "Where is he?" It was a question of logistics. In the first day, they said, "Who did this?" It was a question of attribution. In the first week, they said, "Who betrayed him?" It was a question of paranoia. And in the first month, they said, "Nothing." This was the final word. Silence. Fawzi, in his concrete bunker, stopped answering calls from Doha. He saw Ismail's inquiries not as support, but as an investigation, an interrogation. He purged his own inner circle, executing 2 men for communicating with outside elements. A charge so vague it was meaningless, and therefore terrifying. Ismail, in his polished office, saw his control over the military wing evaporate. He could no longer send money because his own man, Nasser, was branded a traitor. He could no longer send orders because his phones were compromised. He was a king without a kingdom, a political leader without a spear. The organization, which had been a functioning, if fractured entity, was now just 2 men, sitting in the dark, staring at phones that no longer rang. The Lisbon ghost haunted them all. The Mossad file, Ceramic PT, was closed. The rockets stopped. Not because the blueprints were gone, but because the men who ordered the launches no longer spoke to the men who built them. What Hamas command said in the end was its own eulogy. They spoke of betrayal, of suspicion, of incompetence. They used the language of internal collapse. The Mossad, by making 1 man disappear in the bright, unforgiving light of a Lisbon morning, had simply held up a mirror and allowed the organization to tear itself apart, saying everything that its enemies had always hoped it would. The file is closed. If you made it to the end of this debrief, you've got the clearance. Do your part for the operation. Hit that subscribe button. It ensures you're on the list for the next intelligence drop.